What is the difference in socialization between homeschooling and public schooling? This is the question we're going to talk about today. I'm Jacqueline. This is Homeschool Hangout.xyz, where I, a veteran homeschooler of 17 years, shares my insight, experience, and knowledge to hopefully help you homeschool with confidence and joy. If this sounds like something you're interested in, please thumbs up, like, subscribe, all the things, and let's hop on into it. So this was a question I got recently when I was like, what should I make videos about? And this was a question I got from somebody who had been homeschooled, who now is a mother herself. And it's something that I hear from parents a lot. They're very worried about socialization, specifically that difference. And so I could get into all the, well, you can get your socialization here, you can get your socialization there. This is what you do when you're homeschooled. But why and how is it different? And it really boils down to homeschooling is about intentionality, and public school deals a little bit more in coincidence. What do I mean by that? You homeschool and you choose where to expose your children, who your children should interact with, and what times a day and things like that they're doing it. In public school, you are put in a random class that you are in 5 days a week, all day, sometimes extracurricular activities, regardless of how you are doing in that situation or how prepared you are for it. So, for example, if you know your child is not a morning person, or frankly, you are not a morning person, as in the case of my house, you may not want them in classes at 8 o'clock in the morning. That may not be a good time for them. Or if you know that they struggle in the afternoon with that afternoon lull, you may not choose to have play dates then. You may not choose to do your big activities then. As a homeschooler, you have that ability. You also can choose, and this is going to sound a little harsh, so have grace, who you want them to interact with. I'll be honest. My nephew was living with us for a few years, and he was in public school, and he was exposed to some people that had I had the ability, I might not have exposed him to. Now, that can be for good or bad. I was exposed to a variety of cultures and people that my parents may not have exposed me to when I was in public school. And those people have special places in my heart. In my heart, I only have the one. I'm not the doctor. In my heart, even though I haven't seen them for 30 years. And I learned so much. So I'm not saying that that's always a bad thing. But you are a bit more intentional with it as you homeschool. I'll be honest. You can call it socialization. I used to take my children to various grocery stores where the primary language spoken was not English because they needed to be exposed to that. So I'm not just talking about who they're friends with and everything else. There's also the coincidence on the other side when you look at public school. I remember being in first grade and being in the recess yard and having somebody pick on me and having to learn how to navigate that on my own because I didn't have my mom and dad with me. And the teachers basically said, go figure it out. I had a girl who used to take my glasses in fourth grade and pick on me and make fun of me. And I got told, this is the real world. You should figure out how to deal with that on your own. I'm not of that mindset. I believe there's still children in the real world. You take my glasses, I call the police, but that's a whole nother rant. So, but some of those situations and who has to figure out what social thing is coincidence by whose classroom you land in, by who you sit next to, by what activities you're in, what times a day you deal with things. Those are all not chosen for your child to have a specific experience. Now, that said, I put my kids in choir. I don't know what kids they're going to have to deal with, frankly. But I can choose who's running that activity. If I'm there to watch that activity, I'll be honest, I couldn't legally take my second grader and drop her at a park and walk away for 45 minutes. But I remember being out on the outer field where there was no teacher around and getting picked on. So things that we do as parents, have generally more oversight than things that happen in other things. My nephew in junior high, walking home from school, had social encounters and socialization encounters that my kids just didn't have, even though I wasn't always around them. I would let them walk in the neighborhood in junior high together, but you know what I mean? It's different. So intentionality is a huge thing. I intentionally exposed my children to volunteer situations where they were fairly young, but they're volunteering with a room of people who are 60. I'm intentional to make sure that they get that socialization around children and adults. But you can also look at your life and figure out where they need more. So for us, we attended a large church with lots of kids. So I didn't worry that my kids didn't have enough like park time. They knew plenty of kids their age. And so that wasn't a huge struggle for me personally, but it might be for someone else. But I did put my kids in Awana so that they had that structured group activity time. So you can choose what you need, I guess is the best way to put it. If you feel like your kids need to be, which I did with my eldest, needed to be around kids more, I put them in sports when they were very little. But by the time the baby was born, they had so many other things going on in their life, they didn't need that additional socialization opportunity. So that, to me, it all boils down to that difference. Socialization boils down to intentionality versus coincidence. And you have to just decide which one you feel more comfortable with. My children still have had plenty of socialization. And I was able to introduce some of that based on age appropriateness and control that I wouldn't have had otherwise. My husband has told my children, and it's true for me too, starting in about a third grade, second grade, I heard curse words every day at school from other kids, not from my teachers. They weren't losing it or anything. My now 20-year-old called me when she was 16. And I had her ride the bus to and from school if we could, the city bus, where I could track her location and everything else. Never was exposure more deliberate. But she called me saying, "Mom, I just came out of my classroom for my speech class or whatever. And I've heard the F word more in the last 5 minutes than I've heard it in my entire life." Which I just laughed. And yeah. "Aren't you sad you missed that in public school?" And she's going, "No, I'm not sad I didn't miss that." Now, that said, it's not that big a deal, but I got to choose when I started allowing them to see more of that unexposed, unvarnished world. And I don't want you to think that I was a big sheltering parent. My line has always been, I didn't homeschool my children to shelter my children, just control how the world is introduced to them. My kids have hung out and gone to a variety of things where people, my daughter, we lived a mile from a church where a homeschool group was going. And so I let her walk to work. It was like 2:00 on a Monday afternoon. She'll be fine. And people were shocked and aghast. I put my kids on the public bus in high school often for college. Very controlled. We know exactly when they're getting off. It's one bus from River Park to our house. So it's not like they have to put themselves in some weird schedule. And people are like, "Oh my gosh, I cannot believe that you let your, 16-year-old son ride the bus to and from work at a fast food place." It's like, well, that's real life. So we are not sheltering parents, but we are intentional. Does that make sense? I feel like I'm talking in circles. If I've made any sense to you whatsoever and you've made it this far, please let me know I'm not completely crazy down in the comments, or tell me I am, just be nice. But yeah, now if you want ideas on socialization, do me a favor, let me know. I'm in an area that has a decent amount of homeschoolers, so we have a lot of homeschool activities, but we also put our kids in a lot of activities that weren't homeschool activities. So let me know if you need some ideas, and I will talk to you all later. Bye.